Welcome, folks. It's 6 o'clock. We are going to call this to order. I don't like to bang the gavel. Everybody can hear me. I may throw it, but I won't bang it. And thank you all for being here. We're going to start with the invocation, and then we'll do the pledges, and we'll go from there. So if you'll please rise.
Dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful we live in a country we can gather together freely to conduct the business of our city. Lord, we thank you for the blessing of the devoted and courageous men and women of the armed forces that have made our freedoms possible and for the sacrifices of their family. And Lord, as Thanksgiving approaches, may we be mindful and profoundly grateful for all the blessings we have. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, on to the Texas flag. I pledge
Honor the
allegiance.
Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, folks. Chief, do we have anybody sign in? Since there are more people, there's some new people here this week, today. I'm going to make our little spiel here about how long you can speak on this right here. The citizens who wish to address the council on any matter may sign up and do so prior to the meeting, which a lot of y'all have. Public comments will be received during that portion of the meeting. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. No discussion or final decision will be taken by the city council. If it's not on the agenda, we legally cannot discuss it, but we can listen to your comments, okay? Okay, here we go. First one on here. Andrea?
Why don't you go ahead on up? That way we can get your lovely voice on recording.
All right. Does it have a clock? I have 3 items. First, thank you. I really like the little notification I get every Monday what's going on in the city for the week. I absolutely love it. Second is what's coming up. It pertains to the public hearing, but not really the public hearing. I would like to urge the city to work on a plan to control the densities of Airbnbs and short-term rentals. I have nothing against Airbnbs, but I think it's in the interest of the city to be proactive so the city is not overrun with Airbnbs. Maybe establish something, one Airbnb in a 500 feet radius or something like that, so we don't get a super dense Airbnb in selected areas of the city. Third thing I would like to address is item 7, the installation of LPR cameras, license plate readers. I wonder if the city is really hit by such a crime rate that we need these cameras and supervise or survey citizens as they leave and come into the city. Because according to my knowledge, we have to get in an agreement with the Texas Public Safety Commission or whatever, TPS, and we have to, or the city will have to retain the data of all these cars that enter and leave the city, including most of them probably citizens, for a minimum of 3 years. I really wonder if the citizens of Morgan's Point require supervision like that, or surveillance, I call it surveillance. Think about it, please, and I hope you make a wise decision and vote against surveillance. Thank you. I think I was under my limit, but I don't know anything else to say. Thanks.
Thanks.
Dwayne, I noticed you signed up, but do you want to wait till item 7 comes in and discuss it then, or do you want to do it now?
I would speak now.
Okay.
In case y'all don't know, there's a real bad echo back here on these speakers.
Oh, really?
Well, let me start by saying, Ms. Secretary, Mr. Mayor, Council, you see the order I put that in, correct? Well, I'm here to speak against item 7, flock cameras or automatic license plate readers. surveillance of every vehicle that comes in and out of our city. That is about the most government overreach I can think of. I've got a hypothetical example here. I usually leave the city in the same way most of the time, but occasionally I leave in a different way. So if a crime happens and I just happen to be leaving the city in the way outside my normal routine, that way happens to be closer to where the crime was committed than my usual way I leave, am I now a suspect? According to this system, yes. What if a friend who does not live in the city gives me a ride to work or a ride to town? Is he now a suspect? Yes, according to this system. I did a quick search and found some info on Electronic Frontier Foundation website. The article was titled, "Things to Know Before Your Neighborhood Installs an Automated License Plate Reader." Don't install these on just the police recommendation or in the name of public safety. If you haven't looked these up, please do. After all, the Patriot Act was brought to us in the name of public safety, and take a look at how that's working out for us. This is not just license plate photos. This tracks, it sets patterns and compares to all other data in its system on the cloud. This is citizen surveillance, government overreach, and invasion of privacy. The ultimate agreement, Big Brother. Usually, what you have is a crime, and you're looking for suspects. With this, you have a list of suspects, and you're looking for a crime to tie them to. This is the type of thing you expect to see in Austin, Houston, places that are extremely liberal, not small-town Morgan's Point Resort. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. Mark, you're next.
Good evening. I'm Mark Allen, 48 South Cliffwood Circle. I have two announcements tonight, both on behalf of the EDC. First, I just want to make an announcement. The EDC is going to have a vacancy on its board come this January, and I want to get the word out because we're interested in having people that would like to serve, they're willing to put the time in and have the willingness to serve. We'd love to hear from y'all. So, vacancy on the EDC is one coming up on the board. The other is I want to remind everybody about the ribbon cutting at Clippus Park this Sunday, 3 p.m. I want to be sure everybody gives a big shout out to Tom Edwards. He has just done a wonderful job. He has worked incredibly hard for 3 years, and this is the culmination of that. There's going to be a ribbon cutting, 3 p.m. on Sunday. It's it's just wonderful what he's done out there. Hugh Shine should be there, and Hugh was a big part in getting this done, and he has helped this community so much. So if you please come Sunday, and if you see Tom, please give him a big thank you on behalf of the community. That's all I had.
By the way, that will be a very short program too. It'll probably be 15 minutes, so it's not going to be a long.
Oh, right.
very
No
program.
long speeches other than what Dennis was planning, but we said no.
Thanks. Thanks a lot. Thomas, would you like to say something? Your turn.
Good evening, everyone, City Commission. My name is Tomasz Gozdalski, and I'm the owner of two properties in Morgan's Point Resort on Pony Lane. And I wanted to talk to you about item 4 on today's agenda. City of Morgan's Point Resort is seeking to adopt ordinances requiring property owners to pay an annual fee to register all rental properties with the city. The City Council packet for 11/9/21 meeting, item 4, discuss proposals of Airbnb ordinance and permit fee schedule, does not spell out specific reasons why the city believes there is a need for Airbnb ordinance, but I presume the city answer to the question why this is needed would be the rental registration ordinance is needed to give them tools to address code violations and contact property owners. I do believe, however, that City of Morgan Point Resorts already has code enforcement divisions whose sole purpose is to identify, deter, and remedy code violations on properties. The existing Section 15 specific use permit, subsection 15.3 use regulations, already requires the owner to obtain a specific use permit for a short-term rental. Additionally, property owners are readily identifiable and accessible through existing government records. The short-term rental application checklist, among other items, lists the site plan showing all the improvements on the entire property on which the short-term rental unit is located, to include power panel disconnect, house water main valve, etc., etc. To my knowledge, the existing code of ordinances, section 3.02.005, plan specification and survey plot plan required, specifically request under item 1, plans and specification to include the front, side, and rear elevation and detailed floor plan of the proposed structure for every structure built in town of Morgan's Point Resort. Is creating duplicate records of floor plans the most effective way to spend time by city employees and property owners? I would also like to question the proposed application fee structure for short-term permit, including $300 for the initial application, $175 for annual review, $150 fire inspection, and $100 standard inspection. If my math is correct, this comes up to about, 600, 500 plus cost of the permit. What makes the above inspection so much more complex when compared with the existing fee structure for new residential construction, where most of the single-phase inspection costs $40, including re-inspection cost of $40 for each re-inspection. What makes a short-term rental permit so complex that it justifies 7.5 times higher cost? Is the true answer for higher costs simply because we can? I cannot speak for other short-term rental owners, but assuming the proposed ordinance, including a short-term rental fee structure, will be approved by the city, I will choose not to rent my homes because of the rental registration ordinances. I invested my hard-earned money put aside for retirement into investment properties because I was afraid of another financial market crash and inflation. My only regret is, at this point, that I decided to purchase 2 houses in City of Morgan's Point Resort. The recent increase of hotel occupancy tax by 120% in July earlier this year didn't help me as well. I do believe that, in addition, property owners who choose to rent their homes are forced to increase monthly rental rates to pay for additional regulation from city government. This increased cost is passed on to the tenant, which adds to affordability and availability issues at time when Texas is experiencing high prices and lack of rental inventory. I also do believe that cities should already use the tools already at their disposal to combat issues with the properties, bad actors, and protect the health and safety of tenants, property owners, etc., etc. I just wanted to add that I take extreme pride in ownership of my property. I take extreme care of my property. I pass by the rental property at least 2 times a day to make sure that there is nothing wrong going on. And I hope that City Commission will take to heart some of my comments. I do understand that most of the public is against the short-term rentals. The main reason why I decided to go with the short-term rental, because it allows me to access my property on frequent basis, because I had a lot of issues and damage to my property from the so-called standard traditional tenants. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all that I had signed up. Anybody? Oh, we got one more? I'm not sure who you're pointing at, but whoever it is, please come forward.
Evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak. I received this, my name is
Would you
Sue
please-
Kitchen, and I live on Buttercup Loop. And I received a letter concerning short-term rentals. One of these houses is 2 houses down from me one way, and the other house is right next to it. My husband and I moved into Morgan's Point. We built our home in Morgan's Point. It's a place to retire 15 years ago. At that time, our area in Morgan's Point was fairly open. A builder was allowed to come in, and he put a house on every lot, which caused innumerable problems that I'm sure most of you are aware of, one of which was drainage. There have been other problems on Buttercup Loop, and I think part of that is due to Buttercup Loop is kind of on the outskirts of Morgan's Point, and no one pays a whole lot of attention to it. This most recent thing I see as interfering with our property values. There are people that live on Morgan's Point that do take great pride in their property, just as this other man spoke about. When we moved there, we were looking for peace and quiet, a little bit closer to nature, etc. And now, what I'm getting from this is that there are 2 houses, one of which I know is already a rental, are being put up to be short-term rentals. I have deep concern about short-term rentals. And that's what I have to say, basically. I object to anything on Buttercup Loop being made a short-term rental. We don't know. We have no authority over that. We don't know what kind of people are going to be moving in there, whether it's for a weekend or for 2 months. Right now, I know that in one of those properties, there is a lady who is a very nice lady. She had a very good reason for needing a short-term rental because her husband was relocated, his job was, and there was no accommodation for his family. So they looked for a short-term rental and they found that one, and she's a wonderful person. But when she's gone, I would like to know what the definition of short-term rental is, because if we're gonna have people moving in and out of there once a week or whatever, it's not gonna be good. The other question I have about that is on this one particular property, there is a vacant lot next to it that evidently goes with this particular residence. Are they going to make that a parking lot? Where are people going to park when they come? Short term, we just had a gentleman that moved in across the street from us that bought a house that was totally unsuitable, and I know y'all don't have any control over this, but his family is much too big for that house. They all drive. His front yard looks like a buy here, pay here lot because that's where he's parking everybody. This is not good for Morgan's Point, and I feel like Buttercup Loop has kind of become the, pardon the term, red-headed stepchild of Morgan's Point. So anything that, any explanation that you can give us, like a definition of short-term rental, justification for making these houses rental properties, would be greatly appreciated. The other thing that I'm noticing is that there are a great many businesses opening up in Morgan's Point. It was my understanding that no business was allowed to operate within the city limits as a business. And I know that circumstances, financial circumstances, because of all the things that are going on nationally, is probably having some impact. But businesses are springing up everywhere, and we're talking about businesses that use heavy equipment. And some of those were here when we moved in, which I've never understood because it was against the bylaws. But they're there now, and they have been. So I don't understand that. And I'm seeing Morgan's Point become not what Morgan's Point used to be, and I don't think what it was intended to be. And I appreciate your time and listening to me very much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Larry, I guess it's your turn.
I guess so. Mayor.
Yeah, welcome
He's
to
like,
the-
wait a minute, he's got second thoughts now.
Yeah, you still on board?
Hey,
Why
I'm
don't
in
you
the
come up
fire
here in
now, what
front?
can I do?
Let's do it right up here, has that, do it, that way everybody gets your picture.
There you go.
Okay, and we're gonna start right here. I,
I,
your name,
Larry Gossett,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully
that I will
execute
faithfully execute
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of City Council Member
of council member
of the City of Morgan's Point Resort,
of the city of Morgan's Point Resort,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve,
preserve,
protect,
protect,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Ken? Well, he's on pay grade. We will raise his pay grade. Ken, your turn.
And I'm not used to the sun going down as quick as it is right now, so still feels a little weird. Okay, this is our report from the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting that we met on September 28th. During that meeting, the following items were discussed and voted on for consideration of Morgan's Point City Council. Planning and Zoning made recommendation to move forward to City Council for consideration the Keela Development Single-Family Subdivision for the 13.394 acres under current ordinances to conform to those height restrictions. And with that, the vote on that was unanimous in favor of moving forward. Planning and Zoning made recommendation to move forward to City Council for consideration the specific use permit for B&B at 43 and 45 Buttercup Loop with the ordinances that are being changed there and with those intended restrictions. The vote on that was unanimous in favor. Item number 3 was Planning and Zoning made recommendation to move forward to City Council for consideration the specific use permit for B&B at 26 South Cliffwood Circle, and the vote on that also was unanimous in favor of. Owners of the properties under item 2 and 3 have retroactively remitted the occupancy tax required under the new Morgan's Point Resort Ordinance for short-term rental properties. Planning and Zoning discussed accessory buildings as noted in Chapter 14, Chapter 10, and Chapter 8. The concern in the definition there is the definition of contiguous. This was returned to administrative staff for further analysis and further recommendations. Planning and Zoning made recommendation to move forward to City Council for consideration the appointment of Michael Ortega as a member of the Planning and Zoning Committee. We had another applicant, Mr. Westmoreland, and after questions and comments and discussions on both, Mr. Ortega was voted to move forward to City Council for their vote and consideration. Planning and Zoning thanked both candidates for their interest in serving the City of Morgan's Point Resort. And with that, there being no further business, the Planning and Zoning Committee adjourned.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate all
Any
that.
questions? I'll be glad to.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a public hearing on the special use permits. Some of y'all have already spoken. Is there anybody else that would like to make any comments? I'm going to open this up to public hearing on those two items on 43 and 45 Buttercup Loop and 26 South Cliffwood Circle as far as special use permit.
Till the time.
Yeah, we'll start it right now at 6:24. Please step up, state your name and address, please.
Stuart McCoy, 29 South Cliffwood Circle, right across the street. I've lived there for, since 2010, and I've noticed the traffic since COVID started, the uptick quite a bit. But since this bed and breakfast opened up, the traffic has gotten quite a bit worse. I've got a photo of this past weekend where there was 9 vehicles at that house, and that was after one left. One night we came in from the coast. It was about 12:30 in the morning when we got in, and my family and I, and there was a car in the driveway, lights, some of the lights were on in the house, car in that driveway running. We pulled up, and they shortly, right after that, left, pulled over to my neighbor's house, picked up something in front of their house, and left. I don't know what all illegal behavior has occurred, but I can tell you there's stuff that goes on that doesn't look right. The fact that they're there, nobody can check on them except through records of if they're legit. This isn't what Morgan's Point is about. I mean, we just got a new high school with tons of new kids coming in, and we really don't need people prospecting from some of these bed and breakfasts. And like it's not going to happen. I just ask that y'all consider this really strongly. That, yeah, it's a nice thought, but out here, and why out here? I mean, it's away from everything. It is by the lake, but you know, maybe section off something down here. But then you'll have other people saying that we don't want it here. So let's just say no, please. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, let me say something if I could.
Yes, please.
The law is real clear that we cannot prohibit people from renting their houses. There've been, you know, Austin and some other cities tried to do that, and
Give Neil the microphone, so be sure everybody hears this.
Austin and some other towns have tried, you know, to prohibit it, and the courts have uniformly said you can't. I mean, that's a property right. You can't keep people from renting their homes on a short or a long-term basis. So what the city is trying to do is you can have reasonable controls of that, and that's what I think the city is looking at in this ordinance.
This
But
is new
the
to
tenor-
everybody, every town and every city. Nobody's crossed this bridge. Very,
And you know, to Neil's point, once we get through the public hearings, kind of at the end, and then also on the next item, I put that on there, we're going to talk about some of those mitigating regulations and things that we're trying to propose and the city's rationale on why we're doing this instead of just saying no. So I will address all of that, and I've heard a lot, and we're going to address it the best we can.
But what I want the public to understand is that this is not something that we can prohibit.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the best that we can do is try to have a reasonable
I understand
ordinance
that.
in place to be able to regulate it.
I really do. I understand that. It's just that it's when, and not to sound condescending, but when government gets involved, then it's usually the law-abiding that is the one that suffers. Because it's just like when they want the observation of the license plates coming in, then who gets the focus? It's like going to the store and you're scanning yourself and they're watching over you. I'm paying to work for them to get looked at like I'm stealing. And so we're the ones on guard. I've got 6 grandkids that come to my house regularly. I have got to watch them nonstop when that house is full, just because I don't know who's over there. My neighbors, we know each other. We have time to get to know them. They get to know me. And so with this in and out and on theirs, she sometimes has it rinsed 3 times a week, different people. And
we
this
need to keep
won't
this,
last-
we need to keep this on the subject. I'm sorry, but
Well,
we
that's
can't,
why
we're
I
getting
am.
off of it.
I am. I mean, this
Yeah.
is what I deal with on a daily basis. But thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more comments? Any other comments? Come on.
Good evening. Paul Smith, Lois Smith, and several of our neighbors I've spoken to live at 47 South Cliffwood Circle, just right down the street from the 26th property. I haven't been unlucky like this gentleman here that really have noticed anything, you know, because we own 3 lots and it's kind of got a buffer, so we haven't noticed. But Lois and I have used Airbnb and not bed and breakfast, but the other VRBO, I believe. And, we enjoy them. But most of the places that we have stayed, the people are actually, this is in Brooklyn, up in the New York area, and the people are actually there on a different floor. At the same time, it's not where you buy a house to use it as a hotel. I don't like that. I mean, next thing you know, it'll have Holiday Inn on the front of it. Seriously, with 9 cars, But it could happen. And like I say, just a regular, somebody moves in, buys this gentleman's house that moved to Arkansas, and they want to live there and rent a room or something, or whatever they do, or if they're out for the weekend and they rent it through those two organizations. I don't see any, problem with that, but I really don't like that where that's all if that's what's happening, and that's what I've heard, that you just buy a house and you just use it for a hotel. Not too crazy about that. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Paul. Ma'am? You please state your address and name, please.
My name is Monica Wiseman. I live at 24 South Cliffwood, right next to 26. I have 2 little boys myself. They're here with me tonight. I can count 11 children under the age of 13 that live on our half of a block. 11, between Stewart's grandchildren, my children, and the other girls and boys that go to school with my boys. The biggest fear for us is the people that are staying there don't know Morgan's Point. They don't know that the kids live there right next door. They don't all know the speed limit when they are coming down the street, and there are 6 boys on their bicycles and scooters. It's becoming a highway in and out. There are so many cars. There are so many deer that we already know, but they're not familiar with us. They're not familiar with the kids, and it's becoming more and more dangerous for my 2 little boys to ride their bikes on the front street. And it's not that I'm against Verbo and Airbnb. I've stayed at them. I stay at them when we go to the coast, when we go down to South Padre, when I go to visit my family back on the East Coast. But normally where I have stayed, it is specifically zoned for that. They are condos. They are all together, almost like high rises, like you would a hotel. But the house where it's nothing but families up and down, and we all know our neighbors, and it's a lot of children, it's becoming scary for us as parents, just letting them be on the front street.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Anyone else make a comment? Well, then I'm going to close. Okay, wait, here we go.
My name is Andrea Ferrara. My wife Emily and I, we live at 45 Buttercup Loop, which is attached to 43 Buttercup Loop. We do Airbnb out 45, so I just wanted to address some of the differences maybe between us and the other Airbnbs. We live on the property. I stay on the property. I work from home. I go to school from home. I'm always on the property to watch it. It's not 45 is not being rented. 43 is, but 45 is obviously attached to 43. So. We rented mostly to soldiers for the most part, people who are in between. I don't know if most people understand, you can tailor your clientele on Airbnb. So while it sounds like many houses and may have people that it's just 10 people staying in a small house trying to be by the lake, as Airbnb owners, we can alter that, and we have. So for us, like I said, we have mostly long stay tenants. Usually about 14 to 17 days. Generally, they're soldiers. Soldiers' families coming to stay in, fishermen in the summer. So I just wanted to address that as far as the types of Airbnb owners. Like I said, we're not from out of state. We moved down here. My wife's a neuropsychologist at Baylor Scott and White. I'm a student. As far as the lot, no, we would never turn the lot into a parking lot. We purchased with the intention of staying in Morgan's Point with the Morgan's Point vibe. This just kind of fell into our lap. We use it for family when they come down, but it's also a really nice apartment that has a lot of space for people that need a place to stay, has its own parking. And like I said, I'm on site. There's no coming and going in traffic. We just don't tolerate that kind of. We wouldn't tolerate that at our house. So.
Thank you very much for your
Yeah,
comment.
you're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
This is the time for a very short address from the kind of Airbnb property owner point of view. Can I still add to the discussion?
He wanted to add to the discussion.
If you keep it short, yes, sir.
Yes, of course. Thank you for a moment. I just wanted to let you know that I'm, as a rental property owner, I'm very sensitive to all the, everything what I heard. I wanted to let you know that in my, like a house guest manual that is communicated to each, guest prior to arrival, I clearly specified all the city's zoning requirements, section 802, I believe, that deals with noise, maximum number of vehicles that are 3 per property, maximum occupancy. And I live probably 7 minutes by car from the property that I rent, and I am in open line of communication with the neighbors. They are aware of it, and I ask them to let me know if you hear any noise, any out of ordinary occurrences, and et cetera, et cetera. I also try to establish good communication with the guests, yes? So I kind of know that they are decent people. Sometimes I refuse the rental if I suspect that somebody may be for something no good. Does it absolutely guarantees that I will not have a bad guest? No, unfortunately no. Occasionally you can get someone, but as I said, there is a limit for everything, and we have a police department, and we can always contact them if there is anything again, going on not according to city ordinance. Thank you so much.
Let it be known that we're not trying to point y'all out. Yeah, obviously rules and regulations are made for people that don't abide by them. And if everybody lived on a property, did that, there would be no reason for a lot of this. But unfortunately, you're not the only ones that are doing that. So there has to be some type of rules and regulations to cover everybody. Is that understood? I mean, I'm not trying to say that y'all are bad. I don't think that's any that's coming across here. I know y'all are very responsible. You have your property, but you're also 2 people, and what if we have another 30? We don't know exactly how they're gonna do it either. So we have to have some type of regulations for occupancy, parking, and what you do to protect the citizens along with the property owners. So that's where we're at. If there's no other comments, I'm gonna close public comment at 6:38. Okay, we're gonna go on to item 4, is that correct?
Yes.
And the proposal for the Airbnb ordinance and permit fee schedule. And I'm gonna turn this over to Mr. Dalton Rice, our city manager.
All right. No, one of the things everybody up here, including myself and talking with y'all on a regular basis, we appreciate the engagement, the good, the bad, the ugly. We have it all. We have to balance what that looks like and how we look at that on a daily basis. Airbnbs are one of those things that are not new, but they're new to legislation. They're new to government to a certain extent and how they're managed. Let's compare a rental property to a short-term rental property. How many times have you had a bad renter next door that you could be tied into a 12-month, 24-month, 3-year lease with this person versus somebody that, if it's regulated appropriately, then there's a lot more control where, yeah, there might be 3 people, 3 families that come in, but there's some control. So let me break it down from a very objective stance on what staff has kind of done research-wise. We know of 6 in the city as of right now. We're been told that there's 16. The county is only tracking 1. So that is what unregulation looks like. If we go in and say no, regardless of the law, which we can't, I mean, we can, governing body could if they wanted to, but then it's going to cost the taxpayers in litigation, which is what Fredericksburg's going through right now. And then we don't know, because what's going to happen is, you know, we talk about government overreach, which I agree, but there's also the government overreach of state. And in the 88th legislation in 2 years, short-term rentals are going to come up. And when we start looking at what's called a state preemption, they completely take the power of local government to do anything away. And so if they come out in there and say, you as a property owner can do whatever you want with your property, rent it, short-term rental it, whatever, then we have no control over it, period. They can do whatever they want. They don't even have to notify. And then we don't have a say. However, if we take this the opposite approach of it, just like any business, just like any community, and we get ahead of it, we take people's investments for what they are and what they ideally want them to be, and we work with them and we partner with them. Let's say we do have one bad person. Let's say we have 10 short-term rentals, but one we had to deregulate, one we had to pull a permit, or we had to cite or code. We could go to and work with the state legislators on this to say, look, we want an appropriate amount of government regulation to support our investments, to support our properties, to figure out what that density looks like, so we can make violations and citations actually hold weight. But if we do nothing and we say no, they're going to happen anyways. We have 16 of them operating right now somewhere in Morgan's Point that we're trying to track down. It's not as easy as going to the state entities and getting it, because the state has trouble tracking some of these as well. And right now, the state's the only one paying. So to the point of the 120% real quick, it went up because we're truly accruing or trying to capture what is actually needed. The state says 6%. The cities can go up to 7%. And because we have an expo in Bell County, there's another 2%, not to exceed 15% by state. If we go in and regulate without doing anything, now it's costing taxpayer dollars to regulate something that may or may not even ever be able to be regulated. So what happens? Costs go up, we don't get the revenue to recoup that cost, and things change. So we have choices here, and I know this is not ideal, but guess what? We're by a lake, and we have 5,500-ish residents. We're waiting on the official census to come out. We thought it was going to come out soon, but clearly not. But we don't even know what our service population is. And our service population is all those residents coming in and out of our city at any given time to enjoy our natural amenity right behind us. And so we either get a hold of that and do what we can to work with them and regulate them, because what do you think the difference between an unregulated $50 a night short-term rental versus a $340 a night short-term rental? You know, to the point of the fee schedule. Which is this next line item, which is ultimately what we're discussing. We're not adopting anything tonight. It's just a discussion on the fees and why we're doing it. You know, I understand that the application fee, you know, can be burdensome, but that's a form of regulation to a certain extent, just like preliminary plat fees, just like permit fees. You're right. At the end of the day, is $40 fee to our residents something that we care about? We could not. Or we could focus on the businesses that are coming in and they're making money, they're turning around and getting a benefit out of that. When then in turn we get to 7%, we get hotel occupancy that we can then roll back into stuff for our residents. So there's a balance. We have to find that balance. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to find what that balance looks like. So we don't know what these fees are going to be. That's kind of what the discussion with City Council is tonight, is our recommendation. But if we don't offer any fee, we don't kind of and figure out that process, then we do run uninhibited, or we end up in a potential lawsuit, or the state turns around with, no matter what we do, and they turn around and say, guess what, cities, you can't control anything, and now you have the next form of government regulation or overregulation that has a larger impact. So what we're trying to do with this is we're trying to find that balance and get a hold of it. We're trying to make it to where there's inspections, there's people on site. We're trying to make it to where there's an application process so we can capture them. We're trying to make it so we can get our application fees or fee schedules so we can try to actually recoup some of the cost that's going in. So we're not throwing an arbitrary number out there. We're trying to figure out the staff time, the certification, you know, notice of certification time, you know, the inspection time. So we're trying to balance what all of that looks like. We're having cities even calling us, trying to mirror what we're trying to emulate, because every city is going through something similar. Fredericksburg has over 600. 600. So.
may I make a
Yes,
comment?
absolutely.
And right now, what is on our agenda is just the application form and the fees. The next item will be the Airbnbs. But what I wanted to say, echoing Dalton, I worked at City Hall for 4 months on a voluntary basis when our city manager was gone and we had a vital person out. And I had to line up everything for this specific use permit. It's not the same as going in and getting a $40 permit to put up a accessory building. You have to, there's all kinds of loopholes you jump through on the specific use permits. You know, you've got to apply, you've got to be at P&Z, there's got to be public hearings, there has to be notification of people within 200 feet. And I can tell you, we did a couple when I was there. It took hours and hours of staff time, and I was working for free because I'm on the council and can't take any money. And I know our city secretary, we were there sometimes till 7 o'clock at night going through this process. It's very arduous for specific use process. It's not a simple permit. So I think what Dalton's point with this is putting a price on it, is trying to reimburse that. We have to send you letters. Those of you that got letters that were within 200 feet, it was a certified letter. We tried to send regular letters and people said we didn't receive them. So now we have to send certified letters, which are incredibly expensive to send. So what we're doing is trying to recoup some of this money as far as staff salary, as far as stamps, as far as this process, as far as lining up to the different meetings. So there's really not a comparison between a simple permit and a specific use permit. So I did want to point that out. And the other thing that we're addressing is kind of an application form, and you know, we can use input, and we'd love to have input from some of the owners of the B&Bs on our application form. But when we had a gentleman out here that was opening an Airbnb, and he was trying to do everything he could by the book, and he saw ordinances, but he did not see any type of permit fee because we didn't have one. So he did everything he thought he should do, but there was no process for him to get online and, like Dalton says, have some control over, you know, the addresses and the applications and things like that. So it's more a matter of cleaning up. We've got to have paperwork. You know, we never even thought about B&Bs before. No, nobody really did. I mean, they were out there, but our city didn't even think about it. We didn't have a process in place. So this particular thing is putting a process in place for them to apply, and the fees, and we can talk about the fees. And Dalton, you may want to bring in some of these owners to talk about the fees. But the fees are to try to recoup the money that the city's losing in salaries and postage and the different things we're doing. Does that make sense? We're not just arbitrarily throwing something out, hey, we can make $300 on a permit fee. What is it costing us to do this? Yeah. So, but we can look at things like the annual fee. We can look at things like a fire inspection, a standard inspection. I mean, we can look at those, and we appreciate the comments that came from those people, but I wanted to let you know why we're doing this. It isn't just arbitrary. It's because we didn't have this in place, and the fees have to be recouped. The city cannot keep eating that money, and we had a city secretary for hours and hours and hours a day with me working on this when she has other jobs she needs to do. You know, we have limited staff numbers. So anyway, Mr. Mayor,
And we're not voting on that tonight anyway. We're
Right.
just doing it, so I'm gonna bring that to a halt. And if anybody here, any of you homeowners that wanna discuss these fees with them, you're certainly welcome to get a hold of Dalton or one of us, and we'll meet at City Hall if you have any questions or your response. We can do it anytime you want to. And so if there's any questions, like say, right now, everything's pretty tentative.
Yeah, and there are two different ones. The permit fee schedule, the permit fee schedule side focuses more on preliminary plat reviews, final plat reviews, things for developers to come in. It just standardizes that process. Every city has them. We don't right now. And so to Councilmember Donna's point is at a minimum recouping that cost of what we're doing. We're trying to, in the process of streamlining these services and again, providing the best that we possibly can to our residents.
Okay, we're gonna move on to item 5, which is take appropriate action on the special use permit for short-term rentals. Basically on the ones that we have here on 43 and 45.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd really like to address a couple questions to our attorney or reiterate what our city attorney said. And what he was saying is, it's a law that they can use their property for this purpose. There's nothing the city can do to say you can't put in, just like we can't tell you, Barbara, you can't build a house on that property. You can't build a commercial property on a commercial property. You can't build a commercial building on a commercial property. What our attorney has told us over and over again, it's the law. We don't have a choice. It's not that we're not sympathetic to everything you've said, especially the kids. That always is number one with me, the safety of our children. We totally sympathize with some of the concerns you have. I can tell you that we had somebody that was a B&B owner that when the citizens expressed their concerns, they went back and made all kinds of adjustments to their property. They had sound detectors put in. They took out their fire pits. They did a lot to help the people around them. They want to be good neighbors. The other thing is, Andrea brought up a point, we can't control density of them either then, Neil, correct? You can't say, okay, we're only gonna allow 2 on this street or this in this section. Andrea, we can't by law do that. It would be nice, and I totally get why you're saying it, and I agree with what you're saying. However, once again, we're bound by the law, and we're not allowed to do that.
And there's current litigation out there right now of cities that are trying to, and they're spending a lot of money trying to fix it.
They're being sued.
Yeah.
So where does that leave us? Another question was asked, a short-term rental is less than 30 days. Somebody had asked, how long does that go
Yes.
on? The other thing is, these people that come and rent, just like you, I bet, how many people have ever got in a B&B or an RVBO? How many of you have ever rented one? Raise your hands. I mean, we all, it's just what we're doing now. But when you went in there, first thing you got was rules and regulations of that particular home, didn't you? And what I saw is I called one of our B&B and I said, tell me, what are your rules? Show me a copy of what you tell your tenants they can and can't do. And it is very strict. It's a whole lot more strict than what I can do on my property, what they can do. They even address vehicles, which Neil's told us before, we can't address how many vehicles they park. Is that correct? Unless it's parking the wrong way or unsafe.
Well, so we do have an ordinance. We did update the STR ordinance to reflect occupancy
three
type and
vehicles?
vehicles. So that is current, and this is where us as a city can get a hold of this and do brochures on behalf, of the city, showing these ordinances. And again, working with these Airbnbs. We want the Airbnbs of people who come in and want to invest their properties and have them as investments, not slumlords.
The other thing, can the police department get a copy of the rental agreement? So if they get a call to notify, because City Hall is just during regular hours, I mean, I don't even know, is that legal to do, Neil, where the police department has a copy of their?
If there's any issues, call the police. If you have a concern, call the police.
Absolutely. And they fall under the same
Yeah.
rules you do.
Yes.
Your neighbor's too loud playing music.
There's
after-
2
after
citations
certain
that
hours,
go out, one to the homeowner and one to the occupant.
and they don't want to pay those fees because they're very high. So don't hesitate. If there's a traffic problem, if they're racing up and down your street, what would you do if that was somebody that lived in your neighborhood? You'd call the police. You call the police. We have regulations, we have ordinance in place, and they apply to them just as well as they do you.
Is there a number that we can call that will directly go to a Morgan's Point officer, but instead we get routed to Bell County Comm Center, and then they have to contact Morgan's Point, and then they send them out? Because by the time we do call the police, which I have, they're gone. And so I have no direct contact for somebody that's in the city to say, hey, this away, can you get over there? But instead I'm getting directed to the comm center in Bell County. They have to contact, and then about 15 minutes or more later, they're out there. So we do follow that, and we know there are laws, but I can't get a hold of somebody at 10 o'clock at night when they're overcrowded and they're got random cars showing up, parking in the grass, pulling in my driveway. My kids, are trying to sleep and they've got high beams in their window. I need to be able to get a hold of somebody to enforce those, but instead I can't get anybody there by the time that they have raced 2 cars off and they're gone.
Well, and we can pull records on certain things too. So by calling 911, we can see records, we can see response times, we can see stuff. Because we've also had it too where nobody called 911. Not saying that you're not. So we have to. So
Call the main number if it goes to the.
yeah. So and that's just the Bell County Comm Center. Bell County Comm Center is who we use. So no, there is no direct line. But that's where we can start tracking some of these, because if we do start having issues and we start noticing that, oh my God, there's a track record of, multiple tenants, multiple calls, we can start investigating some of this. And our officers do investigate these things, so.
Instead of calling the
And
numbers.
that's the only number.
911.
Right? There's no
Would you tell them
non-emergency
it's
number.
not an emergency?
911.
And that would be the same if your neighbors were doing it, or
Yep.
if somebody 2 blocks away, it would be the same thing, the same process, so it's the same process. And our officers are pretty good about responding pretty quickly, they really are, so, but it's the same thing, just think of it, they don't have any more rights than any other resident does. And usually less because of what the owners require. And also the owners, there's telephone numbers on the owners. So, the owner can be called directly and say, hey, we got a problem with your renters here. And several of the people that own it have told me they're out with no refund, because that's part of what their tenant agreements are very restrictive. We can never do that as a city, but they can do it as renting in their houses. So we want to reassure you that they do have this in place. And was there any other questions that we didn't answer? I kind of tried to take notes as y'all did, but, the main thing I think Neil wanted you to know is we don't have a choice. As much as we sympathize with you, I have an Airbnb 201 feet from my house. And the reason I know is because letters go out to 200, so my husband got out there and measured with his tape measure why we didn't get one. And I can tell you there was one problem one time that the neighbors reported. They're banned from coming back there, and there has not been a single problem. In fact, we never even knew it was an Airbnb until they came to apply for it. So, I do have one in my neighborhood, so it's not like, they're popping up all over the neighborhoods. But I just want to reassure you, we are all sympathetic. We are all moved by everything that you've said. But by law, there is nothing that we can do. They have a right to their property. So I hope that makes sense to you, but I can't.
I'll take one more, and then we've already talked about this quite a bit, so I'll take one more.
Can we discuss this under item 4, or is public discussion finished?
Public discussion's finished. The public hearing was closed.
Okay, I'm sorry, because I thought when I came in that any item on the agenda could be talked about on the agenda, when the agenda item was brought up. I didn't realize we had to talk.
Well, so they did the public hearing on item 3 that was open.
What is your comment? What is it on?
My concern is,
Who are you?
I'm Pat Clune, I live on 4 Roybean Drive, been here a long time, 27 years.
Forever.
My concern is, you're talking about all of these things that are may be happening. We've got a legitimate business come in, people do a legitimate thing. I have no idea who goes into Dollar General, whether they're gonna have too many cars or not, but I think we're trying to get government involved in something. You said that there's a big issue coming up in the legislature in 2 years that may make all this more clear or less clear?
Correct. And what we do now is going to drive that.
Okay, but perhaps a thought might be, why not just hold on for 2 years instead of having to read?
We're not gonna play the what-if game. We've gotta take some action right now, because there are a lot of concern out there. There's a lot of people concerned about this stuff.
On my part
Yeah.
too, because more government intervention in people's rights are not something, Gossip brought it up earlier, with the license plate thing. Neil, you said you can't tell people what to do. You don't have any long-term, renters scrutiny. If I rent my house out for 2 years, you don't have me come in and do inspections and all of that. Is that fair?
So are you arguing for short-term rentals on that argument?
What I'm saying is, take a look at
Yeah.
it and don't pick out one thing, because
Yeah.
that's called discrimination.
No, I agree,
If you've
which we're
got-
not discriminating.
If you've got a big deal coming up in the legislature in 2 years, don't waste a lot of time doing something that just maybe you run on,
Well-
wait till the 2 years, put it on the agenda.
So the only thing that I'll say about this, is in 2 years, what drives the legislation is what's happening today. So if we say, you know what, let's go with that mentality and let's say no. We're gonna say no to all Airbnbs.
That's not what I'm saying.
So we're not gonna regulate them at all?
Do you regulate rentals now?
No, but we don't. We have 16 of them and we're having,
No, regular rentals.
yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, no, not long-term rentals.
Oh, okay, so we're discriminating against short-term rentals.
We're technically not, we're just having to manage the public opinion of what's going on, though. Yeah, I do. Yes, sir.
You're getting government intervention into private business again.
Mhm.
And you're coming up with ideas that people are concerned about, I understand it, but we have a very fine police force that can take care of it, 99% of the problem.
Correct. The difference between long-term rentals and short-term is there's a 7% tax that goes to the state, that goes, 6% that goes to the state, 7% that goes to the city, 2% that goes to the county. Which long-term rentals don't have that over 31 days.
So what we're really talking about is getting revenue from the short term, so what we're really concerned about?
Just like any code, it's just like any ordinance, it's the same thing. So insert X code of ordinances here or X violation here, this is all that's applying to across the board. It's the same thing, from fences to accessory buildings. Insert a code of ordinances in X city, and this is just what's coming down the pipeline evolution-wise.
I wanna make an appointment.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna call this to the halt. We've talked about it.
Well, I thought that was the whole point of having public discussion.
Oh, we have, but we're repeating this over and over and over and over. We're not gaining anything. It doesn't look like.
So my opinion is redundant, your opinion, so you don't wanna hear it?
I heard it.
You just said?
I heard it. You want to say it again? Did I not hear it?
No, sir.
Did I not give you the opportunity to speak up? And you stated your opinion, correct?
Thank you.
Item number 5, discuss take appropriate action on special use permit on short-term rentals. Do I hear a motion to accept that?
Well, no one wants to make this motion, I'm sure, on the city council because you're the bad guy when you do it, but it's the law. And we have to pass it, and so I am going to move for approving the special use permits for 4345 Buttercup Loop and 26 South Cliffwood Circle.
I'm still a little confused on this. So we're approving the special use permit, but we have not yet established what the guidelines are gonna be for the special use permit?
Well, in zoning, it gives you what the special use permit does. That's where we've gone through the procedures of P and Z public hearing council meetings to say, yes, they can have the Airbnb.
Right.
As far as the application, we haven't finalized the application yet, but they still have to apply for a specific, I keep calling it special, a specific use permit. That's part of what our zoning code says. They have to apply for that. And so, and by doing that, that's when they go to the different meetings and go through the things that they go through. But what we talked about in the other one was a specific application for it and specific fees for it, which no, we don't have that yet. But we still have to have them, you get a special use permit. You know, they still have to be zoned, in other words, they have to meet the zoning requirement, which is, in that case, that specific business has to have a specific use permit. Does that make sense?
So I guess I'll second it. Let's try
You'll
to
be the other bad guy, huh?
By Ms. Hartman,
Let's try to
second by
regulate it.
Shaw. Is there any discussion? I'm gonna ask for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All in favor. Item number 6, this is kind of, you wanna take this as on the kilo?
Yes. Yeah, so there's no action on this one. This was before my time on the 13 acres west of Morgan's Point Road, across from the Phase 4 development. So was already previously annexed in the city before they had bought it. It was already zoned single-family residential. It had gotten denied multifamily residential zoning. And with the state government oversight, there's a 30-day shot clock. 30-day shot clock is already behind. We're working on our processes to improve those plan reviews. But it is gonna be single-family residential only on an already approved annex land, already zoned for single-family residential. So we're working on dealing with the new shot clock requirements from the state, which basically says if you don't do anything then in 30 days, they can do whatever they want.
But they were already zoned
And
for
they,
single.
they were already zoned for single-family
So-
residential, so it's a moot point.
So, yeah, we didn't miss a shot clock.
No, we missed the shot clock in that if we had plan reviews, drainage
I
reviews, or
got
anything
you.
like that,
I got you.
then after 30 days, it's
Right.
pretty much
Originally, I
implied,
think we had
yeah.
thought this was gonna be condominiums or townhouses,
Yeah.
multifamily, and then that's all gone.
Correct.
Right.
Not townhomes, not condos, single-family
So
residential.
there was nothing up for vote, we just wanted to clarify it for everybody to know.
I did
Correct.
have one question on that, though. What's the height limit on those structures?
Whatever's in our ordinances, I don't know, I couldn't tell you.
I think it's two-story. I don't know.
Yeah,
what
I don't know off the top of my head on it.
That'd be my only concern.
Yeah, and,
Three-story
and
house.
when they did their thing on it, the height of it was not gonna be impeding on privacy, but even then, that's not something that's gonna shut down a project like that anyways. The only thing that did was the fact that it was multifamily initially, which it's not, it's single family now. So. Maybe.
Okay.
I'd have to look at it.
Everything passed on that, nothing to pass on the item 6, so we're on item 7. Resolution 21-23, appointment to the Board of Directors of the Tax Appraisal District. Every year we have a representative that, as far as the city of Morgan's Point Resort, has our representative for the Tax Appraisal District. In the years past, it has been Mr. Jarrett Bryant. I think he's agreed to serve again. And so I'll unless anybody has any other suggestions, I'll take a motion to approve him.
I move that we adopt Resolution 2021-23, appointing Jared Bryan Jr. to represent us on the Board of Directors of the Tax Appraisal District.
Second. Do I hear a second? Second for Robbie.
Robbie.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
One opposed. Mr. Gossett opposed, and the rest of our motion passes. Okay, resolution 2021-24, authorization of the installation of the Flock LPR cameras.
So real quick on this, I want to address one thing. If we talk about llama sweaters right now, you're probably going to get an awesome ad on Facebook or some social media platform somewhere talking about sweaters with animals on it. I only use that as an argument of one of the things that we're trying to do is not regulate our residents, even though that's part of it, but that's why we have civil code, criminal code, procedures, and everything else. This is so we can address the influx of the service population that's coming in and out of Morgan's Point Resort. One of the TxDOT studies we showed coming in 2483 alone at the intersection of 2483 and Morgan's Point Boulevard was 5,500 average transit per day. 5,500. We have 5,500 residents in the city, so either they're all going through at the same time at any given moment,
With all their kids? The
with all
kids
their
are driving,
kids,
the
that
kids
are driving as well, exactly. Or we're seeing a lot of folks coming in and using it as a thoroughfare.
And it's only gonna get worse with the high
And
school.
it's only gonna get worse.
When
And
they
so-
get into senior class, it's more drivers. We're not trying to regulate anybody, we're just trying to
Correct.
conceive what we
There-
control.
There is very specific requirements on these. You can read any biased, unbiased article, and see both sides of this. This was actually came about through some public comment on addressing crime in Morgan's Point Resort. We don't have a crime problem, but when folks come into do their stuff and then leave, and they're not part of the Morgan's Point Resort community, this allows us to be able to figure that out. But just like anything else, if you go to Walmart, if you go to H-E-B, if you go to any box store, guarantee your license plate has been read at least multiple times in that process if you just parked in a lot. Because guess what? There's multiple agencies that have license plate readers on their car, and all they do is drive through a parking lot and pick it up. So this is designed to protect assets of property, because you could show up to a dollar store somewhere else and some law enforcement agencies probably already read your license plate going through there. So we're just trying to get on board to help some of this process out. And this was in addressing crime that was coming in and out of Morgan's Point Resort that our officers have tackled. So I just want to talk about that.
Being a resort area with the lake here, we get a lot of non-residents coming in, as they all know, go to Oakmont Park, go to the marina, there's a lot of people that come in and leave Morgan's Point that are not residents. Consequently, every now and then, there's a small percentage of them that don't want to leave here with the same thing they came with. So there's not much crime, but this kind of also allows us to monitor the traffic in and out of the park. And if people have rings or whatever on their houses, you know, that you're taking somebody's picture already yourself.
And it's not public record, and I can't even access it.
Yeah.
So
You don't want to come out on the ring,
Yep.
your cameras on your doors, stuff like that. So, anyway, this is, go ahead.
Tell us again where they're gonna be placed.
FM 2043, North Point, Morgan's Point Road, so all the main arteries into the city, and I believe Oakmont Park.
Oakmont, yeah.
In Oakmont?
Yeah.
North Point
I
Road.
suggest to cut back to the actual, the fourth entrance, that's not on about.
Just four of them.
Right.
Three
I just want
entrances,
everybody to
three
understand
entrances
where
in,
they're at.
in Oakmont Park. Yeah.
Well, I have some questions for the chief of police.
Ask it.
Okay, if you get a hit on the license plate reader or recorder, does that give you the authority to stop those people?
If it's a license plate that is listed as a stolen vehicle, yes.
Okay, how do you make sure that that is? In other words, you're gonna get a hit.
That's coming from TCIC.
Okay, does it automatically tell you right then if it's a felony stop or not?
It'll tell us the vehicle's stolen or reported as a stolen vehicle. So yes, it would be a felony stop, basically.
So there's no possibility of an error there. See, what I'm talking,
I will say that, I mean, it happens in other cities as well,
Does it-
that a vehicle will be reported as stolen, the owner recovers it, does not tell the police, then they're driving it and they get stopped because it comes back as a stolen vehicle. But once we verify that is verified that they are the owner and they just never told the police department that they got their vehicle back, everything is done and over with and we apologize for stopping them. Have a nice day. You know, sorry for taking up your time. But if it's a stolen vehicle, they're gonna be stopped and detained until we clarify everything.
Okay, my next question, how do you make a felony stop? When you suspect someone is a felon, driving a vehicle, you're fixing to stop him, what's your procedure?
What's our procedure considering the number of officers we have?
You come out with the guns?
Each officer handles them in their own way. I don't walk up to a felony stop with my gun drawn, but I may be ready to draw my weapon. If it is a stolen vehicle, yes, they are allowed to come up with a drawn weapon to approach the vehicle. They can actually get on the PA system and direct everybody from the vehicle to step out. And yes, it's like you'll see on the cop shows. They pull them out one by one and detain them. And yes, I'd say it can be a little bit traumatizing, but if the people are in a stolen car,
Yeah, but my next question is if it's not really a felony stop, are we going to be able to afford the suit that comes up on it?
if it's not a felony stop, meaning the car wasn't
If
stolen,
if it wasn't a felon, wasn't in a felony, and you make a felon stop, okay.
So I can answer this. So in the state of Texas, even, we run plates all day long through our computer. If we come back and hand it over, make fun stop, you wanna sue us, we have your suspicion, protect commitment, that stuff, good stuff. We have, what's that word? Qualified immunity, good to go. As long as we're acting within the scope and our policies and laws of the state of Texas.
Now, do you have any policies and procedures in place now to how to handle this stuff?
Yes, sir.
yes. Yes, I didn't bring them down here with me
Okay.
because I didn't know we were gonna get into this big of a discussion, but we have all that in place already.
How will the data be stored? Where will it be stored? Who will have access to it?
The officers can pull it up when they're alerted. The investigator can go into the system if he's working on a crime situation where, say, we had a report of a red car at 2:00 in the morning in a neighborhood and they're pulling door handles on cars, which, you know, a little while back, we actually had 3 cars stolen. All we had was a small 4-door car
Okay,
and a
what-
color. We can search the system for that vehicle and find matches to it, and that gives us something to work with for the investigation. But officers can't just go in randomly and pull things out of it. And information is stored by the flock LPR camera company. It is stored for 30 to 60 days, depending on the reason that, you know, if we flag it or something, it's not anything that's stored for an
So the best way I describe this, and because again, I agree with what everybody's saying. This is kind of the digital version of DNA when it comes to vehicles. So if I go out here and I'm driving my car and I'm like, oh, hey, this white Subaru 4-door or this white 4-door car is involved in a hit and run, and there's 4 white cars that go by in a 4-door, there's more room for error than if there's a specific license plate on there that they can then narrow that focus down. So you actually mitigate the potential for like litigation, lawsuits, liability, by having that DNA stamp on it. Again, nothing is going to be perfect. For example, when I go into a school, I have 3.5-year-old twins,
And I understand.
and I get my ID card, it actually flashes red, and I get pretty much detained there because somebody who doesn't even have my name flags my driver's license in a school system. It happens.
But one thing about this type of system, and it's been proven that, I mean, I'm not, Morgan's Point's got the best police force in Bell County, I think. But it has been proven that it's easy to abuse by law enforcement.
Well, correct, and that's why we have policies, that's why we have, oversight from that. I mean, put it this way, any one of us at any point in time, to include council members, could abuse their position, which is why there's ethics, there's laws, for that. There's why a city attorney sits here, to help mitigate that. So, I mean, we can't pick apart every single thing, because at any point in time, anybody could abuse something in the system. But that's why we hold our officers accountable, that's why I hold the police chief accountable and have high standards. And if that does come out, we deal with that and address that personnel issue in a different way.
And you're confident with your procedures and policies you have in place that would limit any abuse of it, which, like Larry said.
I mean, put it this way, you can go on Google Maps and I could probably find most of y'all's pattern of life just on open source public Google Map from my Intel background.
It'd be no different than what you're doing right now, regardless if they had cameras or not, I mean.
This will track you everywhere.
So,
And it's not being used to, okay, I come flying in the city at whatever.
no, it doesn't track speed.
Okay, and that's, I think, also something that people were concerned about, like you're gonna sit there and write tickets on these,
They're
and
not
that's
license
not the
plate
case.
cameras for speeding,
Okay.
they are just
Yeah.
for ID in the vehicle, so we can work crime out and catch some of the criminals that coming into town. That's what we're basing this on. They don't track speed, they don't take your picture. It is,
So it's for control. It's for control.
no. it's
If
for
it doesn't
criminal
take,
investigation.
if it doesn't take pictures,
No, what I'm
and
saying
and
is it
doesn't
doesn't take
clock your
facial
speed.
pictures.
It pulls data,
It takes
pictures of the
It takes a
license plate.
picture of the back of your car as you're coming into town. We can't tell you if does take a picture of your car, we can't tell you or your neighbor driving your car. We don't know who drove your car. But we're not looking for your car coming into town and tracking where you're going and coming and going. We're looking at it in the aspect of investigation on crimes. Like I said, we had people going through the neighborhood not so long ago, and stealing 3 cars. All we had to go off of was one vehicle description, and we had no way of even starting to track them. Luckily, the vehicles were used in other cities for other criminal activities. We were able to get them in the system, but, we're talking 2-3 days later. Where if we have something where we can start working sooner, okay, this car, this license plate number, this time in the morning, how many people are driving around their neighborhoods at 3 o'clock in the morning, having kids jump out of the car, breaking into other vehicles?
So the other thing that I'll say too, and I say this is probably the last point I'll hit on, this would hit home for a lot of people since this was a big topic of discussion earlier. Some things we can regulate, some things we can't, some things we should, some things we shouldn't. But in the human trafficking world, which is real, this is the ability to break through that 48-hour time clock by addressing these issues. So if there is an APB that goes out, a license plate gets hit of a known kid or kidnapping, we have the ability to assist other agencies and these task forces in that. Without that, we can't do that, and we become a burden on the human trafficking system. So yes, anything that we do in this position can be abused. Our policies, and put it this way, my accountability of it it's not gonna happen. So.
I will tell you that license plate readers were a big help, and like I said, Dalton is right. You can go to Walmart, you'll be surprised at how many times you're at Walmart and Sam's Club, any public parking lot, how many times your license plate has been read by
I'm,
private
I'm not
entities.
worried about the other places, I'm worried about Morgan's Point.
Oh, but
See, I know
this-
they're all over the world.
This has helped, license plate readers has helped us, and it's far back as, a person violating emergency protective order. So you're talking about helping our citizens, you're talking about hurting citizens. We use license plate readers. Had we had license plate readers before in this case, we would have known that the suspect, which was the husband who was violating his emergency protective order, was coming back into the city, and parking his vehicle and still violating his protective order, by means that we couldn't catch. We actually used that to track his locations after he had, threatened a district judge.
And that's not that he can just, yeah, and that's not that he can just go say, oh, I think, Dalton Rice is doing this. It has to be through orders. It has to be through
Had
all.
we had something like that,
Correct.
he would have never, he was one day from fleeing to another state, and we caught him with the Texas Rangers. Had we have had something in that place, we would have had him a lot sooner.
Well, I think the citizens, I think they just want reassurance, this is not another invasion of their privacy, because they're sick, we're all sick and tired of cameras everywhere you go, you can't do anything without it. So I think what we're clearly hearing, this is an invasion of our residents' privacy, is to protect about things that would go on in the city, so that we can identify, we can get a child back quicker, we can help with domestic violence, which that is a problem everywhere, and it is in our city. You read the police report, every month there's domestic violence things. So what I'm hearing is it is a protection, and you have things in place to make sure that we don't get in line with it or abuse it, which I know y'all wouldn't. But,
Basically, it's another tool to catch the bad guy.
yep.
Just like radar. It's just no different than radar.
It's like an officer looking at your license plate, punching it in, getting the information. The camera reader just does it for them. That's basically what it is.
Okay, I'm gonna call for, this is up for a vote, is it not?
Correct.
We'll need a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution 2021-24.
Sean seconded. Any further? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
One nay, Mr. Scotty. Motion passes. Council, does anybody, let's start with Donna. Do you have any comments, Donna?
Just a couple announcements, just to remind everybody, like Mark did, of the groundbreaking ceremony that we're gonna have this Sunday at 3 o'clock. Also, we met today, Santa's coming once again, to Mortgage Point. Last year COVID kinda held him off a little bit, but, the date has changed from our normal date, just cause there was a little bit of confusion, but that's gonna be on December 10th at 6 o'clock. It's a family event. You don't even have to bring a kiddo with you. You can just come and sit on Santa's lap or visit with them. But the whole town gets involved. The fire department, maintenance department, our city staff does, our cops program, our auxiliary, council members. It's a really nice family event. So, we have the Santa Claus too, by the way. So, anyway, love for everybody to come out to that. That's gonna be December 10th. And that's all the announcements I have.
Okay. Bruce, would you like to say anything?
I'm good, thank you.
Robbie, we'll start with you.
I just want to tell everybody here, thank you for coming. I know there's not as many here as there were here, and the discussion is always good. And I'd just like everyone to know that whether all of us agree or disagree, we're always here trying to do the best interest for our city. And just know that, and we try every night that we come up here.
Mr. Gossett, appreciate your comments on your first meeting, so we appreciate that.
Since
But,
I'm the new, since
now
I'm
you
the
can,
new
you
guy on the
can
block,
speak again.
I love our police force, okay? I'm gonna give you a little background, a little of my background on it. I didn't vote against it because of you guys. I'm the new guy on the block. I had to write this down so I could remember it. I'm getting old. I will know that I'm not anti-police, and a little background on me. I went on rides with the Bell County Sheriff's Department, night and day. I went ride with the Morgan's Point Police Department. I've also went to the Citizen Police Academy in Temple and the Citizens Police Academy here in Morgan's Point. It's not that I'm not against the law enforcement. I love them. Because without them, there'd be chaos. But it's just some things that I don't agree with, and that I've got to vote the way I feel.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
And thank y'all for getting me on the city council.
Oh, yeah, thank you for
Sean?
accepting.
And on that note, wasn't against you.
Oh, no, that was, yeah.
My whole point was, we're gonna have to get a younger crowd to get involved, because, you know.
Why are you looking at
Are
me?
you trying to say I'm old? Trying to say I'm old?
Why does he always look at me when he talks about old people in long time?
Specifically against you. Number two thing I have to say is, I wanna thank everybody that came out to support us during our art show.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
And there was a lot of people, and we were just amazed.
Oh, it's the annual event?
It's
Yeah, it's the third annual event.
Yes.
Okay, good.
And, on the tracking people, this is what tracks me, this phone. It knows everywhere I go.
Scary.
That's Big Brother for you.
360?
And we all carry them.
Dalton?
Yep, we gotta do item 8 first. So
So I
item
have
8,
one?
item 8 is gonna be an easy one. So this is actually a great segue into future meetings.
Oh, consent.
Introducing the consent agenda, which is just an easy way to, for example, minutes. They can, council, if they so choose, can make a motion to approve the consent agenda items and whatever's in there. Let me reiterate, this is not a place against transparency. Any item at any point in time can be pulled off. But if there's things, that are common among, business, whether it's a budget amendment that needed to be changed just for accounting purposes, minutes, for example, it's items that typically will not have any controversy. So the resolutions could never go in there because there could always be potential for residents. So we want to introduce these because as our meetings start getting longer and we start having more open discussion and more engagement, this provides some opportunity that council can speed up some of these simple things that aren't going to have controversial items to it, where 9 out of 10 times, 10 out of 10 times, they're not going to be opposed, i.e. the minutes. So wanted to introduce this to council, and again, at any point in time, council members can pull an item out if there's multiple ones in there and vote on it or discuss it specifically if there is any questions on that. Otherwise, a council member can make a motion and second that specific item for the consent agenda, and everything in there would be a part of that. So,
I move for the adoption of the minutes.
Okay,
Second.
second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All in favor? I guess I'm the last one. Thank y'all all for coming out. Do want to mention that we had the coffee with the city manager most Fridays. That's going to be canceled, I think, now through the end of the year.
correct. So, no, thank you for bringing that up, Mayor. So, yes, with the holidays and everything coming up and all the moving parts, spend time with the families, enjoy it. We are going to kick it back off again in January, working with some of the key players in that. I think we're going to bring it to twice a month, but just stay alert on it, and we will start posting when it's going to be, and it'll probably be twice a month. I changed that, Jaman.
This does not mean.
I'll let you know. I have the email draft. So I'll get all the information out there, and we're going to continue the talk with the city manager, and have a good conversation. I do really enjoy it, and I hear a lot of great feedback. So I'm looking forward to the next one in January. So
This
stay
does
tuned.
not mean that you can't come and have a Coke with the city manager in his office at any given time, because we are available. This was just an ongoing deal for Fridays.
Correct.
That everybody knew what they could come in and have a discussion. But
If you call
this
City
is
Hall and
not
get on
to-
my calendar,
This is
you're
not to
on.
shelter him or
No.
shield him, okay?
No.
This is we do it anytime you want to.
Correct. Call
So,
City Hall, get on my calendar, and I'm there.
Thank y'all for being here. I know there's a lot of discussion. We do not just, I know we try to do what's best for the majority of the people. That's all we can try to do. And I'm not always saying we're perfect, because we're certainly not, but thank y'all for being here and for your input.
I move we adjourn.
Move you adjourn, second?